All right, let us start with the session. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome you all for this happy hours of coaching session. My name is Ashutosh Bhatodekar, and today I'm going to talk about hybrid practices in project management. What exactly do we mean by hybrid practices? What are those hybrid practices which we should be using into our transformation journey? And those of you who are aware about this format know that this session happens on a Friday evening. And what we do is we interact, we try to discuss a topic which is closer to heart, as those are the things what we cover as a part of happy hours of coaching session. So I hope you have a good time in next 45 minutes to 1 hour, and you'd learn something meaningful, right? You take out something meaningful from this is what I'm expecting. Okay, so that's about the happy hours of coaching. And yeah, so about myself, as I said, Ashutosh Bhatodekar, working 20 plus years in the industry, primarily working as a traditional project manager in my earlier part of the journey, and then working as an agile coach and an agile trainer in my next part of my journey. So I come from both the backgrounds. I come from a traditional way of working as well as from an agile way of working, right? And I also have my own YouTube channel. In case you are interested to subscribe to the YouTube channel, please feel free to subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'll be sharing the link. We also have a Telegram group. So the Telegram group will help you to network, and we also publish any opportunities which come out on the Telegram group. So I'm sharing both the links on the chat box here, right? The Telegram group link also, as well as the link related to the YouTube channel. So in case you are not yet a member on YouTube, I would recommend you to be a member on the YouTube channel, because then you will get access to almost 80 plus videos which will help you in your journey. All right, so let us start now. Let us deep dive into our webinar, and let us further try to understand what exactly are these hybrid approaches. Now, if you see the way this narrative has been built over the years, right? We generally tend to talk about either we are doing agile or we are following a traditional approach, right? So anyone you ask, they're going to basically talk about either an agile way of working, or they are basically going to talk about a traditional way of working, right? But basically, this narrative itself is wrong. So if you ask me, this entire narrative of whether it is agile or waterfall, that itself is wrong, because fundamentally, I believe that it is not about agile or it is not about waterfall. It is about value management. So what is important here to know is that at the end of the day, whatever work we are doing, are we delivering value to the end users? Are we delivering some kind of a business outcome or a value to the end users, is what is important. I fundamentally feel. Okay, so it's not about agile or waterfall, or it's not about a traditional way of working or an agile way of working. It's about, at the end of the day, value delivery. And value delivery can be done in multiple ways. It is not only in one single way you can deliver value. There are multiple approaches and multiple ways in which value at the end of the day can be delivered to our customers or to our end users. So what I'm trying to tell is this narrative needs a big focus change, or this narrative is something which we need to make sure is not actually myopic in nature, because this narrative actually is very short-sighted, that you say that, okay, either you are doing agile or traditional way or a waterfall way. That narrative needs to change, and the narrative has to shift towards the value-based delivery. So it's going to be predominantly on a value-based delivery where the narrative has to be focused upon, right? So that's something what we need to remember, or that is something which we need to understand from a narrative building perspective. Okay, and just to let you know, even before agile came into existence, we did have basically the traditional, we did have a traditional way of working, and we also had an I would say a non-traditional way of working. So yes, Agile Manifesto came in the year 2001, which tried to codify the things. But even before Agile Manifesto came into existence, we did have other approaches which were very widely used in the industry. So be it a spiral model, be it a rapid application development, rational unified processes. So there were those different models and frameworks which were predominantly used in the industry, right? So it's not that, okay, it's only agile or traditional. There are a whole lot of approaches. There are a whole lot of modules which were used by the industry during the early part of the discussion, right? So that's something which is very, very vital and important for us to understand. So that narrative has to be built around the value part of it, right? So as I said, we did have iterative and incremental much before agile came into existence, right? So iterative and incremental is not a new term. Even in the earlier eras of traditional product development or traditional way of executing project, we used to do iterative and incremental approaches. Only probably the reason then was that our iterations were usually a quarter iteration or a 4-monthly iteration is what we used to find out, right? So definitely iterative and incremental was there. The industry also used rapid application development approach, which was much different from a traditional waterfall approach, which we all know and which we all have used in our careers. And the industry had also used what we call as the prototyping approach. So these approaches are something which were always there in the industry. The only thing is that they got discovered. Over a period of time, right? And of course, then there was the spiral model of project management, a spiral model of development, where we used to actually work around in circles. So we had an initial idea, we worked on that initial idea, we developed that as a proof of concept, and then we used to further refine it as we used to go along. So this model or this framework was something which has been in existence for pretty long, I would say. And Agile, of course, came in 2001. So now I'm going to shift gears and I'm going to talk about some of the hybrid approaches which, irrespective of the framework, whether you are using spiral model, whether you are using Agile, whether you are using rapid application development, iterative and incremental approach, or let us say software development models, these approaches are going to work. Okay, so come what may be, these approaches are going to work and they are going to be there. Okay, irrespective of the framework, irrespective of the approaches, these models are definitely going to operate and they are going to basically work towards it, right? So this is something what we would be talking about, or this is something what we will be covering as a part of this journey. Okay, so the first fundamental thing, irrespective of the model, is as a project leader or as a leader in the engagement, do I know who all are my stakeholders? It doesn't matter whether you are working in an agile engagement or a non-agile or a traditional engagement. Many leaders I have seen, they don't even know who their stakeholders are. For whom is the product being developed? Who's the person for who's giving the requirements? Who's the person for whom the product is going to be developed? And at the end of the day, whether the product is a successful product or not. So at the end of the day, do we have a successful product or the product is actually a major failure? So who all are my stakeholders? Many of us are not even aware of it, right? Many of us are very clueless about it, that who all are the stakeholders. And of course, there are tools for doing this. Like we have the stakeholder grid, which is popularly called as the power interest grid. I have used this tool irrespective of the methodology. Okay, so this is one of the hybrid practice which I've used, which tells me which stakeholder is interested in my project, which stakeholder is powerful in my project, and accordingly I need to frame my coaching strategy. Accordingly I need to frame my stakeholder handling strategy. So I could have 4 quadrants here: low interest, low power stakeholder, high power, low interest, high power, high interest, and high interest, low power stakeholders. And depending on the positions of the stakeholders, I might want to have an appropriate strategy. Like I might want to monitor my stakeholders very closely, or I want to keep them satisfied. I want to manage my stakeholders closely, or I would like to keep them informed, just update them about the crucial information about the project, right? So one of the tools, irrespective of the framework, is what we call as the power interest grid. Interest on the x-axis and power on the y-axis. So this is one of the very pertinent to what we have here. Slight, I would say, a twist to this tool is the addition of a third dimension, and this is called as a stakeholder cube. A stakeholder cube is a tool which will help you to not only identify the power which the stakeholder has and the interest which the stakeholder has, but also the attitude of the stakeholder. Is it a positive attitude? Is it a negative attitude which the stakeholder is carrying? Because remember, one more important thing is the attitude of the stakeholder also matters to a great extent. Is it a positive or a negative stakeholder, along with the attitude of the stakeholder? So that is also something which is very, very important, and which is very, very pertinent to understand the power, interest, and the attitude of the stakeholders what we have. All right. So from stakeholder 2x2 grid, we have something called as a stakeholder cube. And a stakeholder cube, as I said, it's a document which will help me identify the attitude of my stakeholders on a positive note and on the negative note. All right. The second thing which is universal, again, irrespective of the fact whether you're using a traditional approach or any of the other approaches, is planning. You cannot skip planning. So there's a major myth in the industry that agile means zero planning or agile means no planning. No, that's not the case. Even an agile project, you will need to plan. The dimension and the scope of planning would definitely undergo a change, but you cannot say that as an agile project, I won't be doing planning activities, or there will be hardly any planning which will be there. Definitely, the tenure and the dimension of planning is going to undergo a major change. Okay, so that's one important thing to remember. So basically, when we talk about planning, what is important here is that we have to plan from basically plan from a traditional way of planning, which is more like a Gantt chart, or which is more like, I would say, more on the terms of basically kind of a flow which is there, where we plan, where we do an upfront planning. So rather than doing an upfront planning, where we will have to move is we will have to go into a kind of a piecemeal approach or an incremental planning, as we say. But to say that planning is not going to happen, or to say that we will not be doing planning, is an understatement. So even in an agile engagement, I'm sure many of you know here, many of you have been involved in it. I believe you know the planning aspects in an agile project, right? For example, you have the planning related to the sprint. Sprint planning is one of the important event. Then you have release planning activities which are there, right? So definitely those activities are a part and parcel. So definitely the change is more from a traditional planning, which is predominantly based on a very, very, very popularly used tool, which is called as a Gantt chart, to more towards a released based planning cadence. Okay, but the planning aspect is still there. You cannot say that I'm not going to do planning, or let us skip planning altogether, because there's nothing called as skipping planning in an agile way. So many of us have got the myth that agile means zero planning, which is not correct. So what has happened is, if you look at this diagram, the traditional planning, which was more like, I would say, based on a resource calendar, which was more based on a Gantt chart, has been shifted, and it has been moved into an agile approach, or an agile way of planning, which is more on the release management, which is more on the release planning, sprint planning activities. That is one important dimension, or one important change what we find, right? So hybrid practices, I would say planning stays, irrespective of the framework, irrespective of the approaches. The framework is definitely going to stay. It is not going to go anywhere else as such. Okay, coming to the third important mindset, third important thing in a hybrid practices is whether it is traditional or the adaptive approaches. I fundamentally feel that product mindset is something which is very, very important, right? Irrespective of the framework you're using. Okay, so the traditional way of product development, if you follow the classic waterfall, you will realize the value very, very late in the journey, right? So your typically value comes after 1 year or 2 years down the line. But when we talk about an agile way of working, or when we talk about an agile approach, The value delivery is something which is right from day one. So you deliver value to the customers, to the end users much early than a traditional way. So we have what is called as a incremental realization of value. So my customers get to see something much early in the game, right? Rather than waiting for 2 years only to realize that this feature was not needed, or the maybe 2 years before when this feature was conceptualized, this was a hot kind of a feature, but today it is not required. Over a period of time, we realize that value is something which is incremental in nature. So daily, I'm going to give a value. So the value is going to happen on a daily basis is what we would be doing. So that is an agile way of product development, which results in an incremental realization of a value. So value gets accumulated right from day one. That's the next one important thing what I will talk about. And when we talk about an early delivery of value, one important thing to understand is that, yes, I mean, the title of this slide is bringing a product mindset where the value has to be realized earlier. Most of the organizations, actually, there are two approaches which they're following. They're following an approach called as hashtag no projects, which means we don't believe as such in project, because project is more of an output driven approach where we try to fix the three edges of the triangle: scope, schedule, and cost. And we try to basically do something which is temporary in nature. The no project concept talks about building value streams. It talks about building an outcome-based delivery, metrics that matter over metrics which are of no use, right? And stable team, and business accountability and ownership. So business is a part of this no project. Another approach which is similar to no project approaches, moving from a project-centric mindset into a product-centric mindset. So we need to we need to shift gears from a project-centric mindset into a product-centric mindset, which is there, right? So this is the product mindset what we have, or this is popularly known as the product mindset, where we have long-lived teams rather than having. So the classic definition of a project is it's a temporary endeavor undertaken to create a unique product, service, or a result. We are actually challenging that notion. And we are saying that it is not a temporary endeavor. In fact, it's a long-lived team. The team is there to deliver the business value, and more on the focus is on the outcome rather than an output-based approach, right? Because outputs are very, very linear in nature. Your outcomes are more, I would say, exploratory, more, I would say, geometrically progressing in nature, and it gives you multiple dimensions effects to the organization, right? If I'm developing a product which is an outcome oriented product, it actually impacts the organization in multiple tangential direction, whereas an output driven model is a one dimensional model which is there. You deliver the output and that's it, that's the end of it, right? So that's something which is what we call as a from an output driven to a outcome delivered model what we have. Okay, then we have what is called as a value stream. Value stream is identifying waste and reducing or eliminating the waste. Now, you might be wondering why that picture is there in value stream. The reason that picture is there is this was an airline practice in India, if you remember, a couple of years back. You had to actually get the boarding card, the baggage tag stamped at the security gate before you could go to the flight gate. Over a period of time, this practice has been removed, if you observe. Does it mean that there is no threat of an attack? No, definitely there is a threat of an attack. But they have come out with a better approach of handling the same situation. They are now saying that it is better to handle this situation through different security mechanisms rather than basically going through this kind of a baggage tagging and all, which in any case is not going to add any value as such, right? So this is basically a value driven approach what we're talking about, and identifying the value stream rather than focusing on project, moving away from a project funding to a value stream based funding. What is value stream? Value stream is the concept from it's basically the journey from concept to cash. How quickly can you deliver a product into the market? How quickly can you release your product into the market and get a benefit out of it? That is the meaning of a value stream what we have, right? So how can we shorten this cycle, right? From the time a raw material is identified, procured, till the time the final product is assembled and dispatched to my stores across the country. How can I shorten this lead time? So lead time is something which is one of the metrics. And as they say, right, value is more expensive than price. Okay, so this is one of the very pertinent statement, that at the end of the day, it is easy for you to quote a price to the customer. The customer will give you that price and you will deliver the product. But is it a valuable product at the end of the day, or it is a non-value added product? I think that is something which is very, very important, and that is something which is more, I would say expensive and very, I would say difficult to maintain, right? So value is more value practices or value delivery is something which is more valuable, and to sustain that. Okay, it's not about one-time delivery; it's about continuous delivery of value to our customers and to our clients. Okay, the last thing which I had in this hybrid practices was, and this is there's a reason why I have kept it at the last, is it's a mindset change which is required. So our leadership has to be more, I would say, matured enough to bring about this change. We have to move away from a traditional managerial role where we dictate our team, where we tell our team, do this on a Monday morning or do this next week, to more about a leadership role. So leadership role is more about coaching. Leadership role is more about mentoring. Leadership role is going to be more about, I would say, compassion and empathy based, I would say, working with the team. So here we have a person who is with the team rather than away from the team, with the team. Now, typically you find a difference between a manager and a leader, right? I mean, we use that word boss as a kind of a slang, right? So the fundamental difference is, a boss is someone who's going to direct the team, whereas a leader is someone who's going to coach the team. A boss demands respect, a leader earns respect, right? A boss will always say, I did this, I did that, right? A leader will say, we all did it, we all accomplished it, or we all failed it. So boss uses the word I and you. I did this, you made a mistake. Whereas a leader will always use the word we, whether it is for a success or whether it is for a failure, right? A boss is, or a manager is always threatened when the team does a good job, because then he or she feels that his or her job is threatened. Whereas a leader will be happy. A leader is always going to be happy in this journey, right? So that is fundamentally the difference between a leader and a manager, what we have, right? Someone who's threatened to someone who's more like a coach and basically a guide to the team is what is fundamentally the difference. And one of the important things we have to understand is, irrespective of the approaches, whether it is traditional or agile, you have to mold your leaders into a leader's role rather than a manager role. Gone are the days when people listen to managers. People don't work for managers. I think we all know that famous quote, right? People work for organizations, people work for a vision. And even in the great resignation, although they are saying that it is because of a salary hike, the real reason is something different. If you do a detailed root cause analysis, the real reason somewhere will come down to the working conditions. The real reason will come down to the managers not being cooperative or not full of empathy. That would definitely come out to be a real reason why this could be happening, or what is fundamentally the reason why there is such a great degree of resignation which is happening, right? So I wanted to keep this session a little short. I just wanted to cover some of the basic hybrid practices which one should be following irrespective of the framework. Again, it doesn't matter, right? You could still be playing the role of or you could not be playing a role of an agile coach or a scrum master in your engagement. You could be a project manager who's playing that role, or you could be a project lead. But these 5 important attributes which I talked about, and I'll just do a quick summary. The first attribute is, who all are my stakeholders in the engagement? What do they want? What are their expectations? The second one is effective planning, though the dimension of planning might change depending on the engagement. The third one is shifting from a project mindset to a product mindset. That is what I would say. And the fourth one would be maybe value stream, right? Identifying which are the value streams, which areas gives the maximum value to our customers, which areas give a lower value to our customer, and accordingly prioritizing the work. And last but not the least, definitely, is molding yourself more into a leadership kind of a mindset than into a managerial mindset. So those are the 5 pointers which I wanted to share as a part of some of the practices or some of the general practices you could use across your engagement, right? And this is again across the industry. It is not specific for only IT industry. You could be working as a automobile manager, or you could be working as a project manager in a pharmaceutical company. I think these 5 are the critical success factors, or these 5 are the crucial factors which will actually work in any kind of an engagement. Yeah, so with that, I will now open up the floor for any questions, in case there are any questions. And yeah, feel free to ask me any questions around this. So I'll just allow you to unmute yourself and you can ask me any questions. Yeah, I think Mona, you had a question, so you can go ahead. You'll have to unmute yourself and you can ask me a question. Yeah. Yeah, any questions anyone has on this? Please unmute and you can ask me a question. And for those of you who joined in late, you can definitely subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can join the Telegram group if you are interested to know about the latest job postings. What we have, I've just pinged in again for you. Yeah, anyone, any questions, or you can also type in the question in the chat box. Anyone, any questions on this? Yeah, go ahead.
Hello, teacher.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's a wonderful session. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Any question you had?
Yeah, actually, I just want to ask you that what are the hybrid practices that we have discussed just now? So can we use it in day-to-day life now also in Agile?
Yes. That's what I said. I mean, these are applicable for any engagement. I mean, I have been using them for so many years, and these are applicable for any engagement as such. It is not just restricted to a traditional way or an agile way. It can be applied on any of the projects what we have.
Okay, but it looks like that we cannot we cannot communicate these practices directly to the management. Rather, we can, as a PM or Agile PM, we use it separately instead of letting the management know it.
So it's not about management knowing it, right? I mean, eventually they will come to know it. Agile is all about openness and transparency. See, practices are not something which you have to take an approval. These are good things which will happen, and if it is benefiting, it doesn't matter, right? I mean, if it is giving, Agile is all about experimentation. Agile is all about I would say challenging the status quo. So if this helps me in my transformation, why not? I should be using it.
Okay. Can you just a little bit stress on this value stream mapping?
Yeah, I'll cover that, but I think there's a question there, Narayanan. Yeah, you have a question? Sorry, Narayanan.
Good evening, sir. It's very good training. What is the difference between a program manager and project manager? What's the main difference? Normal question, not relating to the subject. You are the correct person.
Yeah, so basically a program, again, I go by the traditional definition given by PMI. A program is a collection of projects, whereas a project manager restricts himself or herself to one project. A program is a collection of multiple projects, and in a program, there can be resource movement which can be possible. So say, for example, a Java developer working on project A in a program can easily be accommodated as a Java developer in project B of the same program. So it is more about economies of scale. It is more about resource sharing, and I would say resource exchanging is where program management operates. I mean, that's the dimension or sphere where the program management is actually going to operate.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Okay, any other question? Anyone else, any other question? Yeah, value stream mapping. By the way, I had conducted a session on value stream mapping just around 2-3 weeks back. That was a detailed 1-hour session which I had conducted. So if you're already on my channel, you will know the link of that session. Okay, value stream, as I said, is basically a concept to cash. I mean, that is what is called as a concept to cash. That is what we call it as a value stream. So basically, how quickly I am basically delivering a product live in the market, right? That is what is a concept of value stream. So when an idea came to me, from the time the idea came to me, how quickly I could deliver the product into the market. That is what comes in as a part of my value stream mapping, or that is a detailed exercise which we do. We try to find out which are the activities in a process which are value-added activities, which are non-value-added activities, and we try to eliminate them. Okay, we try to either eliminate the non-value-added activities, or we try to reduce it at least. So I have given the link of a value stream mapping session which I conducted earlier as a part of this happy hours of coaching session. So you can go and have a look at it. Okay, any other question anyone has before we finally wind it up? Any other question? Okay, fine. So do connect with me in case we are not connected on LinkedIn. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn or on YouTube channel. I've already shared the Telegram group link. On the Meetup group, we are on Pune Agile Thought Leaders. So do feel free to connect on it. And yeah, it was wonderful to have all of you here. So thanks a lot, and have a great weekend ahead. So thank you very much, and have a great weekend.